making a claim of policy. It's not something that is happening now, but it's something that should happen. It's a proposal, right? So, and it's a proposal that is in place to solve a problem. A claim of policy will always present solutions. So, and lastly, Olga and Taylor, the claim that you guys are arguing is schools should block YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook on all computers. So there's a debate there, and I was kind of on the fence about this topic because I think they may already do so, but do you think that they should be doing so? So again, taking a look at that. All right, so what do you guys think? What do we
Should be.
think about the guidelines? Are we clear on the guidelines? What do we think about the forum? What do we think about the topics? How are we feeling?
Should be
I
easy.
feel good with my own topic, but
Say it again, Julia.
I feel good with my topic, but I don't know on which side, whether the
Right,
affirmative
right,
or
right, right. So, and again, this is why it's really good, or why I am attempting to encourage you guys, take a look at the claim, research both sides. While in doing so, seek out the strongest point and make sure you have that prepared. Okay. I guess now that we have this, oh, Caesar, I normally will let you know. When do I let you know this? Tatiana said, so are we starting? No, you guys are not starting this today. However, no, we're not starting this today. But plan on starting it Monday. Now, what my goal is to have us, well, not Monday, we can say Wednesday. We'll do it on Wednesday. We'll have debates on Wednesday. So we'll set aside Wednesday as being the day. But plan every Wednesday in this order. Look, we only have about 9 more weeks left. So if I have to double up a week, we'll do that. So know that next Wednesday, we have a quiz too. That's okay. Plan on next Wednesday, Jariah and Emily, you guys are presenting. I can let you know Monday. Which position is assigned. Okay. But I still am holding off on letting you know because I want you to research both sides. And in doing so, it helps to set up your counter argument. So you guys see that one of the criteria for the assignment is that after both students present their strongest points, they then have an opportunity to respond to the claim made by their peer. So in looking up both sides, it's not only are you establishing, your strongest point, whether you're arguing the affirmative or the negative, but it also allows you to set up or anticipate what your opponent will say. So in looking at both sides, you can anticipate what they may hit you with and have a response prepared. Okay, so that is what will go into preparation for the debates. What will go into preparation is, now that we all have our topics, we know to research both sides, identifying one point. So this is why it's a short, rapid fire debate. Again, making sure we identify points on both sides, because that Monday is when I'll let you know, Jariah, you're arguing negative or affirmative, and from there, you guys will have that information. Okay. So I'm pretty excited. I try not to get too salacious with the topics. So I know some of you may feel like, some topics are better than others. But each of us will have an opportunity to weigh in, because again, whether you are debating or whether you're the audience member, we're all participating. We're all in one way or another determining who will win, the debate. So after the students have given their view takes, we can then follow up with the audience. What do you guys think? What was a detail, perhaps that was missing? What could they have done to make their argument stronger? So you guys will still be brought into the discussion for each topic. Okay, so we'll be able to hear from everybody. All right, so is it going to be we both state our sides and then it's done? Oh, no, no. Or we can go back and forth in debate. Okay, that's a good question. Well, it is organized in a way that one student goes first, then the next student goes. From there, the student then has a chance to respond to the author's or the arguer's point made. But it, besides that back and forth, there really is no back and forth or interaction outside of those two areas: your initial arguments and setting up a counter argument or rebuttal. Okay, which is a response. It is your opportunity to respond to their argument, which is why asking you guys to read chapter 6 for homework was important in kind of setting up this awareness of the naysayer. There will always be someone in your audience who does not agree with you. It's really important as arguers, we don't assume that because we feel that way, that everyone else will agree with us. We are always working to persuade and convince the person who does not share our viewpoint. That's who we're working to persuade and convince. So chapter 6 was really important in terms of when you do your research, when you write your papers, there needs to always be this awareness of a naysayer in your audience, making sure you are addressing them, making sure you are in order to present yourself, let's say, as a fair-minded arguer, you want to address the concerns of the naysayer. So chapter 6 really did a good job of setting that up. What I have for us today is a presentation. So let me take us really quickly through this. My time always kind of gets away from me, but hold on really quickly. There's a PowerPoint that I added to week 7 module along with an assignment. So let me show you guys this. Oh, well, the assignment isn't added yet, but I can still show it to you guys. Hold on really quickly. So the Toulmin Model presentation that we're about to go over now, it is in, again, week 7 module. I am pulling it up now, so bear with me one second. Sometimes when Zoom is running, oh, it came up quick. All right, so let me share my screen. Because as we think about, as we explore the naysayer, it allows us to open up our arguments from that single perspective where we're either arguing, you know, our claim, we're arguing our position, that claim plus support equation. Now we're kind of opening that up to claim plus support, but we're adding a few other elements. So the Toulmin model is what is the vehicle that's kind of sets up these additions. So we are familiar with the rhetorical situation, how language is used to persuade. We've analyzed our reading and the text according to rhetorical situation. You guys remember trace, as we read text, analyzing them according to the text, taking a look at the reader or our audience, also analyzing the arguer and what they bring to the argument. We looked at constraints, what gets in the way or what tends to pull us away from the author's main point. And we also talked about exigence. So trace, the rhetorical situation, helped us to organize and analyze language in arguments, right? How language is used to persuade. The Toulmin model is different from that in that it really looks at the essential parts of an argument. So I want you guys in your mind to kind of make space for, there is the rhetorical situation, which is a critical analysis of argument. And there's the Toulmin model that really breaks down the parts of argument. So again, let's go over this really quickly. And at the other side of this, and this is a really quick, really short presentation, but on the other side of this, I'm going to set up the homework. as well as kind of apply what we've learned to a text that we've read this week. So hold on really quickly. Let me hide my control. All right, let me set this up. So again, the Toulmin model, it is about the essential parts of an argument. Keep in mind that two parts of these argument we are already familiar with. We already have a working knowledge of claim plus supports, claim plus support. So the Toulmin model adds to that, again, the essential elements of argument. So where we just got through talking about our in the ring debate, where you guys are arguing affirmative or negative, the Toulmin model deviates from that just a tad in that it doesn't seek to establish certainty. It's not seeking to establish, I am certainly the winner and he is certainly not the winner. What the Toulmin model works to set up is the probability that your claim may be wrong and the probability that the way I view it or my point of view may be correct. So it brings in this maybe. You have succeeded in establishing doubt. And that's how, if you look at, again, the Toulmin model, that's how it differs slightly from the claim plus support model. So for the Toulmin model, argument seeks to establish what is probably true. So it eases off the gas a bit with winning, either a clear winner or a clear loser. And the Toulmin model asserts that successful argument depends not only on what we want to say, but on how our listeners or readers respond. So again, the idea of audience at the center. So again, Toulmin model takes less emphasis off what we have to say or what we want to say about an issue and places it in tandem or in concert with how the readers or listeners respond. So it's audience engagement, audience participation. So just a little bit of background on the Toulmin model. It's really rooted in speech, right? It's really rooted in debate. So it's important that while we're preparing for or talking about, the debate assignment, we consider the Toulmin model. Have any of you taken a speech course before? Have any of us taken speech or a public speaking class? If not, that's okay. I'm just kind of attempting to pull you guys in. But the model of debate, the model of oration that's generally taught follows the Stephen Toulmin model. And it is this 6-part model of argument that's widely accepted. Again, it's taught all over the country. And it's accepted and useful to many for explaining the essential parts of argument. So it really breaks down the components of argument. In this presentation, we will discuss the main 4 parts that directly relate to single perspective argument. Okay, so originally Steve Toulmin's model is a 6-part model of argument, but since we are in a different forum, since we aren't in a public speaking forum, I've adjusted the model to reflect what we do in this class with the single perspective argument. All right, so first essential part of argument that you guys are already familiar with is the claim. According to the Toulmin model, you discover the claim of an argument by asking specific questions. And just like we learned, the Toulmin model looks at 2 things. It not only concerns itself with what you as author has to say or want to say about the issue, it also considers the audience perspective. So the Toulmin model is a marriage of author and audience perspective, okay? So when we consider claim, when we look at the audience perspective, they are always asking, what is the author trying to prove? So when you look at the claim generally gives the reading audience this information, okay? So it's always rooted in, what is the author trying to prove to me? And the author's perspective, the person who's writing the argument, they're normally answering the question, what is it that I want to prove? Okay. So again, those two perspectives are at work in the Toulmin model. As writers of argument, it's up to us to consider both perspectives when we write. So from the claim plus support that we did in our first paper, we're moving with the Toulmin model to author perspective to author and audience perspective. When we think of claim, we know that it is the single most important statement in your argument. You do not have an argument without taking a clear position on an issue. So the claim is the main point of the argument. It's what drives the debate. Identifying the claim as soon as possible helps you focus on what the argument is all about. So you guys see how we do this. Anytime you answer any reading questions, I always start with, what's the author's claim? What are they arguing here? What is the point that they are attempting to prove? So when we think of debate, as we are thinking about claim, there are synonyms attached to that I want you guys to keep in mind. So when we think of claim, we also think of thesis, especially since you guys are writing argument, writing the argument essay. Your claim is normally communicated through your thesis statement. So synonymous with claim is thesis. In public speaking, in debate, students normally open up not with a claim, which it is the same thing, but with their proposition. I propose the following. So when you hear these words, hopefully in laying out the synonyms, you guys are always making a connection back to claim. This is the main idea of my argument. So again, that's your thesis, your proposition, your main point. Since we know conclusion normally reiterates the main idea, a lot of times, what is your conclusion? What is your finding? That is your main point. And when teaching thesis statements, a lot of times I tell students it is your topic plus controlling idea. So it's your opinion. So we can look at controlling idea as, again, being that claim, the main point. So claim, no matter how we word it, it all has the same meaning in that it is an essential part of argument and that it identifies the author's main point. Okay. We also are familiar with support. You guys were quizzed on what's the equation on which this class is based. That's claim plus support. So you guys already know about support. But when writing our essays, the author, when including support, may be answering the question, what information do I need to supply in order to convince my audience, right? Once you have your claim, once you've communicated it to your audience, the natural next step is, now what information do I provide in order to convince my audience? But when we think of the Toulmin model, you take that question and then you follow it up with consideration of the audience perspective. What addition, or the consideration of the audience perspective. While you're asking, what do I need to supply in order to convince an audience, the audience is looking for what, additional information does the author need to give me in order to convince me of this claim. So we both, audience and arguer, have, the same expectation here with support. What is needed? What can we add to the argument or to the claim in order to convince or support an audience? Just like we looked at the synonyms for claim, a few synonyms for you guys to keep in mind with support is, what are your reasons? Why do you feel the way you do? A lot of times that helps you to set up support. When we look at examples that you attach to your arguments, that is your efforts to support your claim. Support can also take the place of facts, proof, explanation, statistics, personal narratives, the full run of ethos, logos, pathos. Logos is facts, proof, statistics. Pathos are those personal narrative, those testimonials. Ethos is quotes from credible sources, anything that establishes the credibility of the author. So when we think of support as an essential element of argument, it can take It can embody any of these synonyms. We see it in reasons laid out, examples, explanations, etc. Okay. So that familiarizes you guys with the two essential parts that that you already know, that we've already covered. What I'm introducing to that is an additional element called warrants. And while we can add a claim to our argument and we can add support, warrants is different. Warrants is an assumption that the author holds or makes about their audience. So where claim and support can be concrete, you can actually attach ideals to it. Warrants are considered assumptions. It's assumptions that we make about our audience when we make a claim. So it says warrants are the assumptions, general principles, conventions of specific disciplines, widely held values, commonly accepted beliefs, and appeals that are important to any part of an argument. But it is that unseen element. So anytime I make a claim, let's say that, and just borrowing from one of the claims we had for debate, let's say that we are living in a dystopian society. So let's say that I'm making that particular claim. In making that claim, I am assuming that the audience knows what dystopian means. In making that claim, I am assuming that the audience defines dystopian the same way that I do. In making that claim, I am assuming that the audience will define, and again, when I say define dystopia the same way that I do, maybe what's a dystopia for me may not be a dystopia for my audience. But in making that claim, I'm making an assumption that they feel the same way I do. Okay, so warrants being introduced into argument is an awareness of your audience. It's an awareness of values and belief systems that they hold in attempting to seek out that common ground that will make it easier for you to persuade or convince them. So warrants is this awareness, being aware of your audience, considering his or her value system in making your claim, and how that can be used to persuade and convince them. And we see this a lot. I'll bring up an example of warrants. When we were, and this one just popped in my head, you guys, so I'm not biased, trust me. Well, I may be. But with the Colin Kaepernick, when he was kneeling, and then this was like about 4 years ago, kneeling during the national anthem, there were opponents of his social justice protests who felt like he was not patriotic. Him kneeling is unpatriotic. So for those opponents to make that claim, they are assuming that the audience who they're addressing defines patriotism the same way they do. They are assuming that any kneeling or bringing up social issues into this arena, is also rejected. Well, you're making an assumption about your audience. They may feel that way, but they may not feel that way. But again, the warrant is that essential element in argument that considers or brings into the argument audience perception. Okay. All right. So again, warrants are the unstated assumption that links a claim to its support. If I make this particular claim, I am assuming that the audience, holds those same values. And as a result, my evidence, the support that I attach to that claim will be based on the fact that the audience and I share these same ideals, right? Hold on, I see something in chat. Oh, that's okay. But I'm sorry about that, Alejandra, but that's okay. So let's look at some synonyms for warrants, right? Other ways of us looking at this or approaching warrants in our argument. They're the assumptions that we make about our audience. A lot of times people assume that audiences will automatically agree with them. Chapter 6 is really important because it tells you, uh, take that assumption and assume just like some in your audience agree with you, there will also be some who disagree. So you want to make sure you are addressing both. Synonyms for warrants can be commonly accepted beliefs. In making assumptions, you are relying on the fact that you and the audience have these, this common ground, these common beliefs, the same widely held values, same cultural values, same general principles. So you want to have that awareness when you write. So the Toulmin model introduces warrants into the equation. And lastly, what chapter 6 helps to set up is the rebuttal, preparing one, researching with um, always an awareness of what your opponent has to say. And when you have that awareness and you're aware that there are people in your audience who may disagree, that is where the counter arguments and the rebuttal really works to address the naysayer. The rebuttal is strictly for those who may disagree. Some may argue, others may claim. I'm speaking to my opponents. I'm speaking to those of you who may disagree, but I'm bringing it up so that I can, um, you know, in a counter argument, I may bring up your strongest point just only so that I can knock it down or so that I can establish some doubt, right? The Toolman model is all about probability over certainty. So if I can just even create the smallest bit of doubt in your mind, that's successful, right? So the rebuttal in the Toulmin model, it establishes what is wrong, what's invalid, or what's unacceptable about an argument. And it may present counter arguments or new arguments that represent entirely different perspectives or points of view on the issue. So the rebuttal is important in is an important part of argument in that it considers other possible views on the issue. Um, it moves us outside of just assuming that our audience agrees with us or feels the same way that we do. It allows you to open up your argument to consider other possible views on the issue, not to just consider them, but to address them. So the rebuttal is really important. Um, Not only for, again, addressing that naysayer in your audience, but it's also important for establishing you as a fair-minded and credible arguer. Just like we talked about ethical argument, where you are attempting to benefit, you're attempting to add insightful, um, perspective to an argument. The rebuttal speaks to that. It allows you to open up your argument in order to introduce counter arguments um, that allows you to persuade or convince that naysayer, that person who may not feel the same way you feel. So a rebuttal is a good tool for setting up your introduction and or conclusion. So remember the they say, I say model. Um, in grading your papers, I see where students in some cases not only attempted but did a really good job of laying out this they say, I say, where we first look at the exigence, what has been said on the topic, um, kind of where the argument stands, and then from there presenting the I say, what you have to say about it, um, in setting up your claim. So the rebuttal is a good tool in bringing in the they say. You can bring in what your opponents say, the they say, in setting up or responding to your claim. Okay, so you can set up your claim again by looking at the rebuttal, by looking at what your opponent has to say, and then your claim could in turn be refuting that, um, presenting counter arguments that can, again, persuade or convince an audience member who may not fully be on board. So when you think about rebuttals, when you think of refutations, you want to um, be mindful that they're always characterized by a transition that may look like some may disagree, others may think, my opponent may claim, other commonly held opinions are. Those are normally the transition that sets up the rebuttal, that sets up the counter argument. They're normally followed by opposing ideas and your reasons for rejecting them. So it's not just enough that you say what your opponent thinks, it's also that you address it. Now I'm actively opposing it and laying out my evidence or my reasons for opposing it or rejecting it. So that lies synonymous meaning for rebuttal, a disagreement. I bring up a point that I disagree with. That's a rebuttal. A rebuttal is also a counter argument. Some may argue, but my opponent may claim X, Y, and Z, but, and in laying out that but, you're setting up a counter argument. You're setting up a challenge, to that idea. So think about rebuttal in two ways. It allows you to address the naysayer in your audience, but it also establishes you as a credible arguer. Let's see, what else do we have? So again, overall value of the Toulmin model in our writing is it's the most essential advantage of the Toulmin model is that it invites common ground. Again, you guys remember from the what is argument presentation, common ground is required for argument to work. So the Toulmin model takes us beyond that author perspective and opens it up to the audience perspective. So again, it invites common ground and audience participation. Another value of the Toulmin model is writers of argument find the Toulmin model really useful as an invention strategy and a revision strategy. So I want you guys to think about the parts of the Toulmin model that we just discussed as kind of helping you outline an argument. If you were to break down your arguments in the parts we just described, claim, support, warrants, rebuttal, if you were to just kind of lay those out before you write a paper, you've kind of laid out the working parts of your argument. So it really helps as an invention strategy, helping you to get started. With you guys submitting your first paper already, me working on grading them, the natural next step when you guys get your papers back this weekend, the natural next step with that is students will then have the opportunity to revise their arguments, to improve their arguments based on the feedback. So the Toulmin model can also help with those revisions. Maybe I point out certain areas of your argument that while they need to be stronger. You can then in turn go to the Toulmin model to help you to solidify or strengthen your argument. So I want you guys to look at the essential parts we just covered here as invention strategy and revision strategy. So, there's valuable uses for the Toulmin model in this class. Okay, was that my last? Okay, good. So that was my last slide. So with that being said, I've set up an assignment attached to, oh, good question. Caesar asked, will the Toulmin model be on the quiz? I don't think so. I hadn't necessarily planned for it. I may include a bonus question for it. Am I including the Toulmin model? We said the art of quoting, ethos, logos, pathos. Look, what else did I say, you guys? Remind me. I'm writing and thinking at the same time.
The claims.
Yeah, that will be all. So don't worry about memorizing this, but definitely refer to the presentation I put in module 7, review it, because we're definitely next week when we kind of discuss the findings of your paper in setting up a revision plan, we're coming back to the Toulmin model. We're going to look at how we can use those parts to help us improve our arguments. Okay, so that's a good question, Caesar, but don't worry about it for the quiz next Wednesday. Okay. All right, one more thing. Let me show you guys this. So I did add that presentation to our Brightspace module, and I'm attaching to that presentation a Toulmin Model assignment that I want to show you guys. You may even be able to practice it a tad bit before I let us go. So let me share my screen. So attached to the presentation that we just took a look at, there is an assignment using the article that I posted last week, but we didn't get a chance to actually discuss it in depth. But the article, Why Sexually Transmitted Infections Can't Shake Their Stigma. So we're sticking with this theme of stigma, stereotype threat. Earlier in the week, we talked briefly about the racial disparities with pregnancy-related deaths with women of color, right? So this accompanies that, but here's what you guys are doing over the weekend for homework. We're analyzing this text using the Toulmin model. So where we just kind of went through the questions, you guys will be answering them as it relates to this article. So students will be answering the question, what is the author trying to prove? What type of claim? Here, let me get rid of this. It's in my way. What type of claim is being made here? So in reading this article, Why Sexually Transmitted Infections Can't Shake Their Stigma, you guys will be responding in this assignment by clearly indicating what is the author trying to prove, what is their claim? And also on top of that, what type of claim being made? Is it a claim of fact? Is this a claim of policy? Is it a claim of cause? Are they making a claim of policy, right? So using what we learned from the presentation last week to help you guys answer that. You're also reading the article and analyzing support, right? So what information does the author include in order to support their claim, in order to convince us of their claim? Which rhetorical appeal would work best to persuade or convince an audience? So you guys are exploring the essential element of support in the article. You're also looking at warrants. So now warrants aren't actually concrete. You can't necessarily point to it in the text, but you can consider the warrant. Consider what assumption is being made in this argument. When the author makes their particular claim here, what assumption are they making about their audience? Are they assuming that the audience has had a sexually transmitted infection? Are they assuming that the audience may perhaps feel shame or stigma about that diagnosis? So really consider what assumption the author is making about the reading audience in order to persuade or convince you of their claim. I'm sorry, in order for you to be persuaded by their argument. Lastly, we're looking at the element of rebuttal. See if you can find any counter arguments in the article, but if not, what are other possible views that could be explored or that one can hold about this issue? So you're thinking of, if there was a naysayer in the audience, what may be their possible take on this issue, right? So you guys, again, you're reading the article. It's a relatively short article, and you are answering the question. So it says here, students can submit their responses as a single paragraph. There's only like 4 or 5 questions total. So if a student answers each question thoroughly, I think it shouldn't be any longer than a paragraph, okay? So make sure, again, that you are answering each question. And again, you can, I'll say this, where I say paragraph, you guys have the option, you can either lay it out like this, claim, support, warrants, or rebuttals, or you can, again, put it in paragraph format. That'll be totally up to you guys. I'll let you do that. Hold on, it has my view. Let me change the view to a student view so you guys can see it as you'll see it on your own screens. So let's kind of take this through a run through, you guys. Hold on really quickly. So you guys will click on the link. This gives you access to the article. But if you click on the assignment here, let me click on this. Let's see something. Let me click on the assignment. It should take you right into that assignment. Yes, it does. So all you have to do is make a text submission. So you don't have to type this up in Microsoft Word. You don't have to type it up in Google Docs. You can respond to the question in the text box here. And from there, making sure you answer all the questions, you just would submit it to me. Okay. So pretty easy access. It all can be found under the module. Hold on. Let me tell my husband and son that, because I'm picking them up in my on my mic. Hold on. All right. So you guys see that here. So let's consider these questions, because what I know, while sexually transmitted infections can't shake their stigma, while it was assigned last week, again, we haven't had a chance yet to discuss it, but we have briefly discussed the other article, the one about those racial disparities. So can we, based on your knowledge, whatever you guys are able to recollect, let's have like a quick discussion. Let's kind of work through these questions based on that reading and kind of see, you know, just how easy or difficult it may be for us to work through these questions. So did you guys read the, which I believe you did, we talked about it briefly on Monday, the racial disparity article? It was posted in last week's module. It was in the New York Times, but it was all about, but it was all about looking at the stereotype threat, how it impacts a particular group, you know, these women of color, and how that impact leads to, you know, death, mismanaged health experiences. So we know that. All right, so we're taking a look at that. Let's consider these questions based on your reading of that, right, Caesar? We recalled in class on Monday that the claim that was made in that particular text was a claim of fact. So good, we have that answer here. But what is the author trying to prove? Look, let me really quickly pull the article up just so I can point to it. Hold on really quickly, you guys. I'm trying to navigate from a student view. Hopefully. Uh-oh. Let me go to week 6. And both articles are relatively short, so I know you guys will get through them fairly quickly. But this article, the claim, we'll just put the claim here, right, in the caption. African American, Native American, Alaskan Native women are about 3 times more likely to die from causes related to pregnancy compared to white women or other groups in the United States. Okay, so that's the claim. The claim was factual. We pointed that out again. Let me see if I can find it specifically in the text. Yeah, here it is. Oh, yeah, they have it here in this first paragraph. African American, Native American women die of pregnancy-related causes at a rate about 3 times higher than those of white women. So again, we have this reiteration of the claim, clear claim, right? All right, so let's go back to the next question, where now we're looking at support. What type of support was provided to the audience in order to persuade or convince them? And we talked about this briefly on Monday too, but what do you guys remember? What type of support did we feel that the audience used in order to persuade or convince the audience of their position? when I say kinds, I'm okay if you guys say ethos, logos, pathos. But we know, let's just say this. We know that with a claim of fact, generally, the type of evidence or support that works best is factual information. And in this article, the author lays out the factual information through ethos and logos. So we see how they use, here we see, let me show you guys. Here we see statistics or numbers. 60% of all pregnancy-related deaths can be prevented with better health care, communication and support, as well as access to stable housing and transportation. So it's a claim of fact. They're definitely making a claim of fact, but they're also arguing prevention. It can be prevented with. So are we looking at claim of fact and claim of policy? I may even give us, double duty on that, but okay, I digress. We're talking about support. When we think of support, we see numbers. So we see that logo, 60%. We see the use of credible sources. So we see where they constantly refer to the CDC, which is the government's highest, what I can call the upper echelon of medical professionals. That is the government's top healthcare professionals are generally housed, consulted, all through the CDC. Okay, so they're laying out ethos. Credibility is really important, not just the facts, but the credibility of those facts. Okay, so we see that. What else do we remember? Oh, you know what else? They included, did you guys see any pathos in this article? Look, do we remember this article, you guys? Look, am I just blindly asking us questions, or do we really, can we really talk about this article? Because if so, help me out. But where we just talked about support, did you guys notice any other type of support other than, oh, okay, I see you, Caesar, that you don't really remember seeing pathos? I don't think I did. She brought in, yeah, not so much pathos. Okay, so I'll take that. All right, so let's explore the next question. So what assumption is the author making about their audience in terms of what shared belief system does the author rely on the audience sharing, right? In them making the claim that African American, Native American, Alaskan Native women die of pregnancy-related causes at a rate 3 times higher than others. And also this can be avoided. In them making that claim, what assumption are they making about the audience? What are they assuming about you? And I know Warrants is a new one, so I'm okay if you guys just kind of throw out ideas, not so much with the worry about it, is it right or wrong? This is kind of a new concept for us. Let's see. Oh, I like this, Caesar. They're making the claim that, African-American women in terms of die of pregnancy-related deaths more than others, and it can be preventable. They're making this claim hoping that, or assuming that you too believe in healthcare equity. You believe in equal health care for all, or that you believe in quality of healthcare. And I'm glad you said that, Caesar, because many of you, especially students who attend Malcolm X, which is a health sciences institution, it's all about quality of healthcare, equity. How can we improve, right? Jorge, you stated that we know healthcare access. Oh, yes. and quality varies among different ethnicities. Yes, they are depending on you having background knowledge that healthcare access and quality is unequal. It's again kind of pointing to what Caesar said, that it varies between different groups. Now, it's an assumption because not everyone in the audience may agree with that. They may reject the fact that due to color or due to race or socioeconomic background, that could lead to these high pregnancy related deaths that we see in a particular group. They may not necessarily buy into it, but in making this claim, the author Ronnie Karen Rabin, she is assuming that the audience cares about this issue. Good, I like that. All right, I think we're right at 3:20. Yeah. Last question about rebuttal. What is another way of approaching or looking at this issue? How might this author respond to any naysayers in the audience, those who may not believe or who may reject this information? Like, what's another way of looking at or considering this issue? Anyone? Yeah, it's kind of difficult to come off the dome, right off the top of the head with that. But I guess what's really important about it is, as you guys are preparing for the homework assignment, really look at the author's claim, what position they hold. Are they for it? Are they against it? And start from there when considering what other, what's another way that the author can approach this issue. Well, if they're for it or they do believe that this can be prevented, you may, perhaps another way of looking at this could be underlying health conditions. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with, race or, socioeconomic status. It may have something to do with underlying conditions, right? That those particular groups are more susceptible to, right? So when you think of rebuttal and responding to other viewpoints on this issue, you want to look at the opposite of what the author claims. So when you want to look at exploring other positions on it, if she's for it, you want to look at those who may be against it and why they may be against it. Okay. Caesar said another way to look at it is some may say the author didn't use enough race groups with the stats. Okay, that's true. That you didn't necessarily make a case in kind of keeping the purview limited. Okay, I see that, Caesar. Good. But what I like is you guys are thinking about it. So let me stop share. Let me get ready to get us out of here. You guys are clear on the expectation of homework. Really easy week this week in terms of the module. You guys are reviewing, studying for the midterm next Wednesday, but you're also reading the article on STIs and the stigma surrounding that and answering the questions using the Toulmin Model format. So I think other than that, we are clear. It should be a pretty light weekend. Did you guys have any questions for me before I let us go? Will the midterm be on? Oh no, Leslie, I am not doing Microsoft again for the midterm. We will more than likely do Brightspace, do it within the Brightspace forum as a quiz. I think that's easier for you guys to access. It definitely identifies you by name. And as I grade it, it can automatically go to gradebook. So it cuts out a step for me. That's a good question though. I will not be using Microsoft Forms again. All right, you guys, look, I've held us about 4 minutes over. If you have no other questions, then you guys are free to go, dismiss. But if you think of anything later, feel free to email me. If you didn't read chapter 6 on the naysayer, please do so. We will talk about portions of it on Monday. See you, Jorge. Thank you.
Have a nice day, Ms. Cole.
Guys, have a good one.
Have a nice day, Ms. Cole.
Thank you.
All right, you too. See
Have a
you.
good day, Ms. Cole.
You too. See you, Alejandra.
Have a good day.
You too. Have a good one.